Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. Today we're going to be going over creating drive time rings in Maptitude. Uh, if you have any questions at any point during the webinar, feel free to type them into the questions box on the GoToWebinar toolbar and hit send. Dedicate the first 10 to 15 minutes for the instructional portion of this webinar and the last 15 or so minutes to a question and answer. But feel free to ask questions at any time. We will get to them at the end. The whole webinar today will be recorded and you'll receive a link to the recording tomorrow around 12:30 Eastern to download that recording. So I believe that's about it. So we can get started. I have a workspace already set up for this webinar. So I'm going to choose open an existing workspace. And in my training folder, I have a drive time rings workspace. You can use any workspace or map to create drive time rings. You don't necessarily have to have one already set up like I do. It's just going to help me demonstrate a number of different features. Okay. So as you can see, I have a standard US map, has all the layers on it. And then in addition to that, I also have two layers. So I have a layer of BJ's wholesale clubs, and I have a layer of competitors, which have various icons here. So you'll see there's some Sam's Clubs, some Costco's, stuff like that. So the first step to creating drive time rings is to open up the drive time rings toolbox. And you can find that up on the standard toolbar. It says create drive time rings. If you hover over it, looks like a circle with a car next to it. Click on that. And we have a number of different options for placing the pins. So the first poll I'm going to display is going to ask if you'll be defining origins for the drive time rings by clicking on the map. So basically this would be if you want to click a point and create a drive time ring around that point. So if you want to create drive time rings this way, you're going to use the far left option on the drive time rings toolbox, which is the click locations option. So you choose click locations, and then you can click where you want the centers of the rings to be. I'm going to create my rings in Boston. So I'm going to zoom in here, and I'll just click on Boston's city center. If you want to place multiple points, you can. So I'll place another point on Cambridge, and we'll say that's good for now. Here we have options to create a certain number of rings with a certain number of minutes per ring. So what this will do is if I choose, let's say 3 rings of 5 minutes, it will create around each point a ring from 0 to 5 minutes, a ring from 5 to 10 minutes, and a ring from 10 to 15 minutes. So these options control how many concentric rings you'll be creating around each of the points that you plot. There we go. So we can see our 3 rings there. You can see that the red area is from 0 to 5 minutes of either of these 2 points. The orange area is from 5 to 10 minutes of either of these 2 points. And the purple area is from 10 to 15 minutes of either of these 2 points. Once I've decided that I don't want to create rings around these 2 points anymore, I can clear the points by clicking on clear locations here. So note that this will not clear the rings themselves. To clear the rings, we just have to right click on the drive time rings layer and choose remove. Next poll I'm going to display is going to ask if you'll be defining origins using your own locations. So this could be like a spreadsheet that you've imported, any sort of database that you've linked, anything like that. So if you're using your own locations to create the drive time rings, you're going to choose the third option here, which is select locations. And you can do it using the entire set of features in a particular layer. You can create a selection using the selection tools and use just your selection to create the rings around. But let's say, for example, I want to create rings around all of my BJ's Wholesale Club locations. So I'll select from the layer dropdown, BJ's Wholesale Club. Here, if you have a different layer, you would select whatever your layer is that you want to create the rings around. I'm going to use all my features. Again, if I want to make a selection, I can first. So if I were to select a few points using a selection tool, then I could choose selection from this dropdown. And again, we have options to create a certain number of concentric rings of a certain number of minutes. While we are waiting for that to complete, I'm going to display another poll, which is going to ask if you want to include demographics for the drive time rings. Okay, so here are all my rings. If I want to calculate the demographics in these rings, I can choose the Calculate Demographics button, which is the fifth button, and it will calculate all the demographics inside these rings. If you want to treat each of these rings separately, you can choose the Separate Rings option here prior to creating the rings. So you can see it shows mine 0 to 5 minutes, 5 to 10, and 10 to 15 minutes with all the standard demographics in the report. It'll also display a tabular report for us. If we want to export this to Excel, we can with File, Export Table. If you want cumulative demographics, that means that the demographics will be from, for this example, it would be 0 to 5 minutes, 0 to 10 minutes, and 0 to 15 minutes for each ring. You would check off this cumulative demographics option. So just leave that checked if you want the rings to be cumulative. If we want to customize the demographics in the report, you can choose Options. You can go to the demographics configuration here, and then you can click on the aggregation settings. And then it'll pop up all the demographics that are included in the current report. If you want to add additionals, you can click on Filter and add anything that you want from the left side here to the right side. So for example, if I want to include, let's do some projections. I don't think I have those yet, right? I can highlight these options and click on add. They'll get added to the bottom here. Hit OK. Hit OK again. And then now if I choose calculate demographics, it will display those new results with those projections as well. So I'll give an example. I'm not going to create it around all those points again because that took a while. So I'll just do one ring again. Okay, and I'll choose calculate demographics. And we should now see my population projections are included too. So I have my 2025 through my 2060 population projections in here now. If you want to find all of the competitor locations that are in these rings, so in my example, you can see I have a Costco sitting in this ring. You can right click on the drive time triggers layer, choose make working layer, and then choose export to Excel on the top left. Save the sheet, give it a name. And in the resulting Excel sheet, you should see a few different sheets. So similar to doing like a radius export or freehand shape export, you have a layer for each, or sorry, a sheet for each of your point layers that shows the points that fell into that area. So in my example, I have a BJ's Wholesale Club sheet that has my BJ's location that fell into that area. I also have a competitor sheet that shows my competitor location that was in that area. So if you want to extract, see which of your points or maybe which of your customers are in a drive time ring, you can just make the drive time rings the working layer and choose export to Excel.